regular Zoom link and we have to go in through our email now?
Not that I know of. I have heard once or twice that it's easier to do it on the email, but I have sent the link, this very same link, every single time to every single location. So when I send you a message in Messenger on Facebook, if you're on our group there, you get the same link. If you go to the Owl Rock wall or to my personal wall, you get the same link.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
I don't know why it would give you a problem. I also give you the same password. Now the password is case sensitive, you'll recall.
Right. Okay.
So it has to, what is that password?
PHR771.
Yeah, it's PHR, but the P is capitalized, the H is not. And then the R is capitalized, and then it's 771.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm admitting Patricia.
Yeah, Sheila went back out. Her audio was not working. I think she's going to restart.
Whoa, Patricia.
Yeah, I sound enough. I'm turning it off right now.
You are the queen of feedback, darling. You good at it. Yeah, I think Patricia, I think that Sheila is trying to plug back in like that's going to help, but I think she had her mute. I think she had her microphone set incorrectly or something.
Yeah.
You can't, there are ways to check that. That's what I had to do today, you know.
Yeah.
I had switched microphones. I had used my lapel mic for the study this morning, which means when I got back here, I had to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a little weird doing that, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are being live streamed right now, and Patricia's here, and Kia's here, and Mike and I are here, and Sheila's trying to get back in, and Gene is on the way, and our panel is coming together. We are just a few moments, it's now 6:28. We're a few moments before the bottom of the hour when we normally begin. So for all of those of you who are watching the recording, if it takes us a second to get rolling here, there will be a minute mark. I'll give it to you right after the title. I'll give you a minute mark at which we actually begin our discussion. Because sometimes we chat it up just a little bit to make sure everybody gets in. And I'm watching carefully for Gene at this point and for others who might be coming into the Zoom. You know, I consider anybody who's watching on the panel, including those people who are on Facebook, but I often refer to the people on Zoom as the panel because these are the people who are talking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can hear what they're saying, they're contributing. Now you can contribute on Facebook simply by typing in your ideas, your thoughts, your links, your suggestions. You can do that as usual, but let me double check a couple of things to make sure it's not somebody having trouble to get in. Sheila, is that you? No, she didn't send me a new message. That's an old one. So everything looks good there. Let's see if she can get back in. All right. Well, it is good to see you guys. Patricia hasn't gone live yet. Do you want to try to use the lapel mic or just go with your microphone on?
Well, mine's off, remember? I have my mic off. That sounds both.
That doesn't,
So I can
no, unmute yourself.
Good feedback.
Okay. Turn your volume down, and no, I doubt it.
So
Why isn't your status bar coming up?
I have to
We'll do it.
do it from there.
Do it. I'll try to help you. Okay, let me see.
I always have to turn those off.
Okay, so we need to test your microphone. We type microphone. Okay, click microphone setup. No, not, yeah, I guess setup. settings, yeah. And let's test it. Can you scroll down? No? It
This
says
one
choose a,
says-
choose a. Scroll back down, please.
It's down.
Go scroll back up. Thank you. Microphone. I guess.
I never used my mic on here. I always use the lapel or your sound, because I have to, it'll give feedback once I turn it on.
Are you sure?
Mhm.
Okay, well then plug that in and see if we get a different result. All right, pardon us for working on a technical difficulty. We will be starting just a second. My caps will not work on code, Sheila says. I will keep trying. Okay, let me tell you, Sheila, if you're listening. Okay, let me type it in for her. What is it, Patricia? It's capital P, little h, capital R, 771.
What also might help if you want to let her know is to do a copy and paste from the email. That way she doesn't have to worry about it.
Sure.
Makes sense. How are y'all doing?
Good. How are y'all?
Great. How are you, Patricia?
Oh my God. It's that Southern thing. It's also the Haman thing. We say that a lot.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. So when I came to the South, Florida, and I heard it, it was just so familiar.
You're right.
Yeah.
We got 3 people coming in, Jean and Gloria, and hopefully Sheila.
It looks like Sheila, yeah. She's still trying to connect to audio though.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Gloria.
Hi,
Hi.
Gloria.
Yes, it's nice to see you. Michael,
Yes,
how you related to Bert?
I'm his younger brother.
Okay.
Mike is the smart one.
He's the handsome one too.
Listen at that.
I made you blush, Mike.
Thank you, Patricia.
You're welcome.
She's a sweetie. All right, the only thing that I don't see working right now is Sheila's unable to speak. Sheila, will you nod your head if you can hear me? You can hear me? Just nod your head if you can hear me, Sheila. She's talking.
She must not be able to hear you. She said she
No.
can't hear.
No, she said, can you hear me? And
Oh.
the answer is no, we cannot hear you, Sheila.
I don't think she hears us either.
She said, I can't hear you either.
Yeah.
Kia, are you reading lips?
I am. Am I doing an okay job?
I think so.
Doing great.
How would we know?
Good point, Jean.
Good point.
By the way, Patricia, Gabriel says hello.
Who?
The big horse.
Oh. Tell Gabriel I'm not speaking to him right now.
Yeah, I'm not talking to you right now, horse.
I'm still trying to get massages to get that fall all evened out. Yeah, still dealing with that. I talk about him all the time. I go to my masseuse. I'm like, I fell off that horse.
Gloria, can I presume that you hear me? You hear me out there, Gloria?
She's on mute.
Yeah, you have to unmute yourself, Gloria, if you want to answer me.
Yes, I hear you. I was walking away and I apologize.
No, don't apologize for anything. I was just checking to make sure you could hear.
I can.
Let's see if Sheila can get her problem worked out. She is trying to connect to audio right now, and I don't know what that means.
Sometimes I know you have to go to the bottom and I don't know.
Well, another option, Sheila, would be to listen on Facebook and watch on Zoom. If you can't hear me here, you might be able to hear me on Facebook. If you can hear me for that instruction, let me type that in. Try listening on Facebook. Try listening on, I misspelled words.
It's okay. Not the end of the world.
Try listening
You're
on,
not gonna die.
listening on Facebook. Okay. Maybe we should go ahead and begin and let Sheila work on that.
Yeah.
So I only have two little things to share with you. So I'm going to screen share a diagram that I thought was kind of helpful. Let me pull it up for you. It has more to do with childhood indoctrination, religious indoctrination. And it looks like this. Let me know when you can see it.
Now I can.
Yeah, so let me see if I can kind of go over this just briefly so that you can maybe, I've had a chance to look at it more than you have. So, so the blue circle represents sort of a closed religious environment. One of the things that's necessary if you're going to con someone, if you're going to start a cult, or if you're going to indoctrinate people at a church, is you have to isolate. Okay. So there's real strong control over who comes in, who comes out, and what kind of ideas come in and come out. So over to the right in the black, you may notice the idea that information about things like science, sexuality, politics, history, culture, psychology, may be things that they either don't talk about or that they talk about as evil or wrong. So science, in particular, for a lot of fundamentalist churches, is a problem if they tend to be the kind that believe in a young earth or a flat earth. And that's a huge minority of Christians, you know, but there are many. And every church has a few, probably, or at least a lot of churches have a few, if not most of them. Excuse me, I'm getting a little of Gene's, I don't know, something's in the air. He was having his allergies earlier today. He's still kind of froggy, aren't you, Gene? You're muted, you're nodding, I got you. Okay, so within the bounds of the circle, the idea is to train the brain of the child. So ways to do that is to create at the top the sort of toxic blend or soup of fear, shame, guilt, and a kind of fantasy idealism that the child feels that she should be able to reach, but should be shamed and guilted for not reaching it. And so you have a very low sense of self-esteem because that idealism is, that ideal girl or boy is something that they strive for because they're told they must to please God. And then when they can't, they're shamed and guilted or punished, sometimes physically. And of course, the message in the church often begins with fear of dying and going to hell. And there's an emphasis on end times and judgment and the devil and those kinds of things. So that's a powerful, for children, that's a powerful message. They're easily intimidated. They're smaller, they're not as smart, and they don't have the necessary defenses to challenge what's being said to them, nor would it occur to them at a young age to challenge what's being said to them. These are the adults in my life and they know best. And if they say that this is the way things are, then that's the way things are.
Yeah.
So at the bottom, you have a balance between what's at the bottom and what's at the top, because you have the punishment, the isolation, and impossible expectations. You see how that parallels fear, shame, and guilt, and fantasy, idealism at the top? Top and the bottom parallel one another, so that you have childcare, child raising, parenting practices that isolate and punish and expect the impossible, so that the child is constantly under attack and internalizes all of that, and then hears those voices in his or her own head. Now, the result of this, according to this chart, and I don't know how scientific this is, but it's reasonable, and it came from a reasonable website, is that there are often, with children who are indoctrinated to this degree, emotional and social and developmental kinds of delays, particularly around critical thinking. Critical thinking is the one thing I think that is most important in stopping independent thought, questions, honest doubts. You learn very soon as a child what not to say, because the results are punishment and shaming. So you can see this blue circle is what we've been calling the bubble. This is the bubble. Sheila's coming back. Let me admit her and see if we can get her sound going this time. So thoughts on this chart? Is this ringing a bell?
I can hear y'all now.
Yay!
Yay, Sheila.
I knew I'd get it, or it was
You
going
got
in the
it.
You got it. I'm interested in thoughts on the Sheila, you can see the screen that I'm sharing there with the little diagram.
Yes.
So the blue circle is the bubble, and inside of it, we have a child who is being defended against things on the outside over there on the right in the black, like things like science, sexuality, politics, history, culture, psychology, etc., and is being given a steady diet at the top there of fear, shame, and guilt, and fantasy idealism, like the perfect world, the perfect church, we're the perfect church, we're the perfect family, and I'm going to be the perfect child. And then at the bottom, the punishment and the isolation and the resulting low self-esteem because of these impossible expectations. And you have children who begin to have not only developmental delays and emotional and social delays, but I think they start to manifest themselves in having some physiological symptoms and some psychological problems as well under the stress of this. So you see kids who have a tick, in their face, kids who don't have a real smile, who forget how to play or who don't like to be touched. You start to have some really serious kinds of things going on with children. So what I wanted to ask you all was to kind of comment on the blue bubble here. And I guess the first thing I want to say is let's consider this as plausible and as maybe a bit extreme, but as diagramming something that some of you may have gone through to some degree. And I'd like to hear about how that happened. How did this happen? If it happened to you, how did it happen? And if it didn't happen to you, why?
Can I?
Okay.
Were some of you protected from this somehow?
I just wanted to say, not necessarily it happening, but in just looking at this and reviewing it and kind of examining the whole chart, it reminds me of a cult. It
Yes.
has that cult feel to it that
Yes.
you embed into the mindset what you want individuals to believe while shielding them from other things. And as it's stated on the side, these worldly views. I know for me in the church, a lot of times you hear that world is constantly stated and reiterated, living in the world, and
Mhm.
this just has that cult feel to me.
Right. So I'm not an expert on cults, but if this diagram were about a cult, I think it would probably add two things. I think cults do all of these things on the chart. I think you're probably correct. But I think another thing that you would have added to this, if we were describing a cult, is we would have a single super charismatic leader who makes all the decisions for everybody. And I don't see that charismatic leader on the chart necessarily. Although it may be implied, I don't see it. Okay.
I
And then
don't see it either,
yeah,
but isn't it implied that the pastor would be the leader?
yeah, it's implied. In a cult situation, though, it's not leadership. It's as normally defined, because leadership, I think of leadership as something that's healthy and can be transformative and a strength. I think control. The cult leader wants control over who you can have marital relationships with, and you have to turn into him all of your earthly goods and money. It becomes a compound. Okay, so that element of it being a compound with a dictatorial leader in charge of what everybody says and does and owns is not really on this chart. So for a full-fledged cult, it's sort of like this, what you're looking at in front of you, but more on steroids, I would think, for a full-blown cult. There was another element that I was getting to, number two, that slipped my mind because we got to talking about the leader. I'll think of it in a minute. Some of you other people had started to talk. Sheila, were you about to say something?
I think it was Gloria.
Was it
Well,
Gloria?
Yes, I'm looking at the different emotions, I should say. There's said doctrines that are taught. And I'm saying at some time in our lives as children, we were taught these things. We were taught to be fearful. We were taught shame. We would say, you hear people say, shame on you. And some of the punishments that we received were not the best. So I can't see none of us not, well, let's say I'm gonna stick to myself. I guess I have experienced some of these doctrines. I don't know whether they were taught to me or it was my family environment, or but most of these I have felt.
This
So
is ringing a bell
mhm.
for you.
well, yes, because I have, oh, I guess I'm talking, I remember that when I was a child, my mom would tell me, we went into a drugstore and she says, oh, don't sit over there, don't go over there. You can't do this and you can't do that. I mean, even in life, we were brainwashed. Okay, that's a good word, I think.
Yeah,
Brainwashed.
it is a good word. In fact, brainwashed is almost the same definition as indoctrination.
Right.
I looked it up.
Right. And I even to the point that we were said your expectation. Oh, you can't do this. You can't reach this. You won't be able to do this. So in actuality, I guess for me, and this wasn't just a religious, this was social also. And so therefore, I childhood indoctrination, and you can even take out religious, you can say childhood indoctrination.
Yeah.
For
Are you
me,
bringing in an element
for me.
that sounds important to me, and that is on top of some of the sort of strict boundaries that you were placed under religiously, there was also a lot of racism out there, and you really could have gotten hurt or in trouble for sitting at the lunch counter when when Black people weren't allowed to do that at the time. So your mother, in that case, I guess, was trying to protect you from getting in trouble, which brings up the question of when you're raising kids, you know, you setting healthy boundaries is important. So what's the difference between this closed loop and healthy boundaries in parenting? Because if you don't set healthy boundaries with children, they become spoiled brats. You know,
That's a really good point.
Mhm.
I think I do agree with Gloria in that it doesn't have to be religious. I mean, as a child, as I look at this chart, I've experienced fear and damnation, shame and guilt for sure.
may I interrupt and ask how well you're hearing Patricia right now? Is she soft or is she good and strong? Good and strong?
Strong.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Yes, so punishment, all of these impossible expectations. So I totally agree with Gloria that it doesn't even have to be religious. But as we're talking about religious indoctrination, I really feel like this is what persons use, this coercion, and they make it seem, and they do it uncritically so that you can buy into it. If they did it critically, then you might rebel against it. But if they do it, you know, I think this indoctrination really means coercion, to do this coercion and do it in a way where you can believe me and you feel like I'm loving you and this is the right thing to do. So I'm going to do it uncritically so that you can believe me. And so, but I think religiously as well, the fear is what stands out to me the most.
Yeah.
Using fear, and it still happens in the pulpit. It is not just for children, because as I looked also here in the center, it says repressed critical thinking. That's also for adults in terms of our thinking can be repressed in terms of if we're only hearing one thing and we're not being exposed to anything else or hearing.
Look, that seems
truth
really,
over here.
really important, Patricia, because you
Yep.
just pointed out that not only is this something that they initiate with a child, but they have to sustain this to maintain the membership of the congregation. They have to continue to close that loop. They have to continue to repress critical thinking. They have to continue to preach fear. They have to shame and guilt people who ask questions. They mete out punishment for those who don't, including isolation or maybe even or shunning or physical punishment, like the guy on the video that we watched 2 weeks ago, so that you always feel like you are, not only is your salvation in question, but I mean, you feel like you have one foot in hell all the time, and you think the church is the only way you're going to fix that. And it's like you don't realize you're in the belly of a religious beast that's killing you. It's not your salvation, it's what's killing you. It also points out, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Gloria was saying about, walking into a drugstore and mom saying, don't go over there, don't go over there, brings back when I guess I was about 6, but I can see it and hear it like it was yesterday. My grandmother and I had walked into the drugstore, and of course we had a little counter for coffee, pop, whatever, ice cream. And I always wanted to go over there. And she one day told me, no, I can't go over there. And I was wondering, why can't I go get a pop or an ice cream? Well, a friend of hers one day sat me down and said, the reason you can't go over there is because there's Black people over there and you cannot go over there. And I said, well, why not? And they just said, it's just the way it is, because our little town could be, it could be cruel to a lot of people. So as time went on, I just kind of threw that out, because to me, there was no color. I mean, I never saw color. And my grandmother's, because that's the way she. So, she's going to go what she was taught. Well, anyways, I had something else about this chart. the children, as far as the shame and the guilt and the fear. I had a very close friend in school, and I went to Catholic school. And she was told all the time, you know, that she shouldn't do this and she shouldn't do that. And as she got a little older, she started feeling guilty about what she had done. And she went to church one time, and her and I sat there. Well, actually, the both of us had to go because we had to do some Hail Marys. But anyway, we we were sitting there, and finally she looked at me and she said, "Is it worth living if I have to be scared every day of my life of what God is going to do to me?"
Excuse me, Sheila. Renee, you might want to mute your mic. Just
Welcome to Renee, and I
It's
think we
not
had
me.
someone else join. I think we
Dale.
had Dale join. Dale and Renee, check your mics. So we're hearing a lot of people talking.
It's not me.
You can turn on your mic. You can turn on your mic when you're ready to speak, and that would help because it's a little distracting when we hear the background noise. Thank you.
I am alone.
So yeah, I mean, the only experience that I had that I recall that was similar to what Gloria and what you, Sheila, have explained is that I was invited to go swimming one time, and I went to the pool and had a great time. And my friends had told me that Black people weren't allowed at that pool. And I went home and I said, "Dad, why aren't Black people allowed at that pool?"
Right.
He said, "Where did you go?" I said, "The country club." He said, "You're never going there again. Come with me."
Exactly.
And he took us to the public pool, which was integrated, and we swam and had a great time. And Mike may remember that. He's nodding like he does.
Yeah.
And so this was the 60s, you know, and things were different back then, and
Right.
people had different attitudes back then. But the thing about that closed loop, that blue bubble that you see on the screen is that that was also sort of the incubator for racism in the church, at least in the white churches that I was aware of growing up, and the culture. It not only had this sort of toxic doctrine that's based on fear, shame, guilt, and impossible expectations and punishment, but it also controlled what you thought not only about what the world was like, but what race you were and which race was better. And so that's where science and sex, over on the right, science, sex, politics, history, culture, psychology, these are pushed away from the bubble, not allowed into the bubble, and vilified sometimes by the bubble so that people don't trust science. And that's where you can get into this especially you can see it on YouTube, where you have scientists who think that everybody who has faith is just like these people in the bubble. They don't see an alternative, and they think of them as being anti-intellectual, flat earth idiots.
Right.
And then the people in the bubble are just sure that everybody who is a scientist is a liar going to hell. And that divide is created by the bubble and maintained, as you said, Patricia, you maintain that repressed critical thinking throughout people's lifetimes in order to retain their attendance and their membership and control of them inside the bubble. So the conversation in these kinds of churches that indoctrinate rather than educate, that repress critical thinking instead of encourage it, are not going to be churches that are having conversations about things like, I don't know, evolution or the size of the universe or the age of the universe, or things like whether Genesis 1 through 10 or 11 can be trusted as historical fact, or it's something else. Those conversations don't happen.
right.
Those subjects aren't allowed inside the blue circle. But one thing that was allowed in the blue circle, as you have heard from Sheila, and as you have heard from Gloria and confirmed by Mike and I, and I'm sure you have your own stories too, of racism from the 60s. That was That was where it was heated up and incubated. It was inside of these evangelical circles. Now, I
But
don't
what
know
I
if that's
was,
that in, I don't know if that's the Bahamas doesn't maybe apply so much. I don't know, because the Bahamas is 95% black, but I have no idea.
There was still racism.
but what I was
There-
trying to get at was toward the end, I just want to know too, I mean, this upset her so bad, she actually committed suicide.
No, no.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah, because she wasn't worthy. And well, again, that's what religion can do.
Mhm.
You know,
The-
and but how many others
I don't know.
have had the tendency because
Oh.
of the way they were brought up?
Yeah, yeah. And so again, I look at the Brown, Sheila, look
Yeah.
at the words in the Brown, they
Right.
repressed critical thinking. That is so key. You don't ask questions, you don't learn how to think critically about issues, you don't know how to analyze or argue, you don't analyze or argue. You accept, you conform, you comply.
Because
Period.
you can't ask questions. You're not allowed to ask questions.
No, it doesn't belong in the bubble.
Right.
Well, as I look at this diagram again, I'm thinking about the psychologist who does the stages of development.
Yeah, Eric Erickson,
Eric
stages
Erickson,
of
yes.
development.
So when I think about that too, and I see some of the shame and guilt and fear and so forth, and there are several others, I think about being the adult. Some persons get stuck at these.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of like being stuck at level 2 concrete thinking.
Yes, and so even though we're talking about, we started off talking about childlike, it is in cults and whatnot, even though you're full-grown adults, you're functioning
like an 8-year-old.
Yes, it's like, what Key was talking about earlier about the cult and all the things that point toward that it's cult-like, because you're stuck at this age where you're giving your passport over to this person who is saying you cannot travel, you need to be to church 24/7, or we're going to put fear in you, or you get shamed from the pulpit, or all this other stuff that's happening. So I think it all roots together into this, because your thinking is repressed.
Well, so much would crash and burn, no matter what age you are, if you were suddenly to realize that something was wrong. Your respect for the pastor when you realize that his practices aren't biblical because you read your Bible yourself. That's the most dangerous thing a layperson can do, is read the Bible, because it will contradict what your pastor is saying sometimes. And that's a good thing. I encourage people to do that.
Yeah.
But there are pastors who discourage that and say that I am the spiritual man of God and I'll tell you what it means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah. You have to come to them for everything.
Yeah, you can't even date someone without asking in some of these circles. So,
and you might get a no.
So this is an authoritarian sealed bubble that defends itself against everything that's secular, and defends itself within from any challenge of authority. And the critical part is the critical thinking. If someone learns how to do that, then the person is like, well, how do I get out of here?
Yeah.
And escape is hard, because these are the only people you know and love all your life.
Yeah.
And you know what they're going to do, because the pastor's going to tell them to do it. Shun them. Reject them, shun them, put them out. They now belong to the devil. So that's how he keeps the circle tight. That bubble's tight. I'm sorry, was that you, Gloria?
Yeah, I was saying that's a good point. A few minutes ago, I was thinking, so how do you get out the bubble? And the fascinating part is that what happens is that you either have to do it yourself, step out, and what you're saying, critical thinking, but you get away from you get away from that environment. And then once you get away from that environment, then you can learn more. Learn is knowledge is wonderful because,
It
like I
is.
said, then you can learn psychology. You can learn about, and for example, in my household, my mom never talked about sex, but yeah, she gave me a book, but you can learn more. You know,
Mhm.
and learn is wonderful.
So suddenly you're
Mhm.
sort of like this childlike adult out there with little knowledge about those things in the black on the right. You got to
Yeah.
learn science, you got to learn politics, you got to learn psychology and culture and history that you didn't know anything about. You got to learn that there's something outside your block, you know, outside your county. There's a world out there. There are other cultures, there are other religions. And of course, what often happens from what I read is that the people who get out of these cults just reject religion altogether, certainly, and including the Christian religion that did this to them. So now they're out there, they're naive, they're vulnerable, they're trying to learn not only all this new information, but who am I apart from that group that has defined me all my life? Who the heck am I? Not defined by them and their rules. And then how do I get all these messages that I've internalized from them out of my brain? How do I rewire in such a way that I'm not punishing myself, that I'm not shaming and guilting myself, and that I'm not feeling afraid all the time irrationally, even though I know better? You see, the wounds and the scars from this experience go on for a long time. And I think it's hopeful that someone might figure out that, hey, this stuff in the Bible, this stuff about Jesus is wonderful. These people just misused it to abuse me. And maybe they can find Jesus somewhere else, but many of them just reject it all, just out of hand, no religion, no nothing. Or they find another religion. Maybe they would prefer, Buddhist meditation or something like that. That's, kinder and gentler and seemingly less demanding and judgmental. They get into yoga or maybe martial arts, and there's nothing wrong with those things. You can be a Christian and study Buddha. You can be a Christian and study martial arts or yoga. You can be a Christian and be a scientist. You can be a Christian and be a psychologist. There are plenty of them. But when you're in the bubble, you don't know that. Oh, Gino is being admitted again. What happened? Maybe he got booted. I hope he comes back. I just admitted him. Hey, Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to say something, Bert. You brought up the shame and guilt as one of the things, and I think that is one of the parts that can do the most damage, especially if it is really toxic shame. But it was really helpful to me in stages that I went through, recognizing that there is a healthy guilt, maybe even a healthy shame. It depends on. I'd like to kind of separate shame and guilt because shame, you can feel like, okay, if you did something that hurt somebody, you can kind of feel, but it's important to feel bad that, oh, I did a bad thing.
That's like having a healthy conscience.
Yes, but
I think that if you feel guilty for doing something, or if you're ashamed of something that you did, that's normal. I think what we're talking about is some sort of toxic, perpetual, I'm not good enough, I don't measure up, and I'm in risk of hell kind of a thing.
Well, that's just to put it simply, though. Guilt is I did a bad thing. Toxic shame is I am a bad thing.
I am a bad thing. Yeah.
And
that's really helpful.
Yeah, you got to discern that. And that takes work and practice.
Yeah. And people who read the scriptures for themselves and use critical thinking know that that's not the way that Jesus works.
Right.
Jesus's tool belt doesn't have toxic shame in it.
Yep.
Right.
I like that. I did a bad thing. I am a bad thing. Quite different. A good point.
Big difference.
I was with my friends one time and they pointed out a little boy in my congregation They just were observing. And they said, one of them said to one of my other friends, and I overheard it, he said, he thinks he's a bad boy. And I looked at the kid and I went, oh my God, he's right. Somewhere that kid got the message that I'm a bad child.
Yeah.
You know, and there's nothing he can do about it. So he just acts out because he's hoping there's no point. There's no point in being good if you're already bad.
Yeah.
Why would I even try? I can't measure up to the expectations of these people around me. And they're giving me messages like, I ought to do better, I ought to look better, I ought to act better, I ought to speak better. And he's not doing anything that's measuring up to dad's expectations. A B+ is just not going to cut it. And so his heart gives up. He says, I'm a bad boy.
I used to feel that way.
I believe you, Sheila.
I did.
Gene, what are you thinking about all of this?
Are you back, Gino?
Yep, thank you. Zoom has not been my friend today. We've got somebody in the Lafayette Church who spent 20-something or more years in a cult. What they told me, the husband and wife, was that they never understood or heard about grace until they left the cult.
That's unbelievable.
Works righteousness, and your works are never good enough. They never experienced grace till they left the cult and walked through the door of a Methodist church. Now, not every Methodist church is created equal, but given the choice between a cult and the Methodist church, I'll take the Methodist church. And one of your comments earlier, Bert, reminded me, our son Lewis is a fan of Ray Wiley Hubbard. I've never heard of Ray Wiley Hubbard until Lewis told me about it, but he's a country singer who wrote a song, Conversation with the Devil. And one of the lines is, Buddha was not a Christian, but Jesus would have made a great Buddhist.
That's funny. That's good. Wow. So if you're not talking about grace, when we talk about grace, what I think about scripturally is the grace of God in Jesus Christ, who on the cross saved us from sin. Okay. But there's no talk in the Bible about saving you from sin. There's talk in the Bible about saving you from God. God has a place called hell. He's planning to send you there. You've got to figure out a way to get out of this, and it's up to you. And Jesus may or may not be able to help you because he's bad about taking your salvation back if you have a slip up or backslide. So they create an atmosphere of perpetual spiritual hypochondria and insecurity. I should probably write that down, but that's when you've got a closed religious environment like that doesn't preach grace, that preaches that, you're not saved from sin. There is no grace. But the problem is that you need to get saved from what God's going to do to you, which means essentially salvation. So Jesus came to save us from God. And once people see that, then they're thinking critically and they go, okay, I'm seeing what they did. They played a little trick on us here. They changed what we're getting saved from, and they left grace out of the picture and forgiveness of sins and reconciliation of all things in Christ Jesus out of the picture. They take all that out and they misrepresent the verses that sound scary, and they just repeat them over and over again and don't help you look up what the Greek words are. And by the way, if you don't know what the 4 Greek words that are sometimes mistranslated as hell in your Bible are, maybe you shouldn't be talking about hell. You don't know anything about it.
Welcome, Dale.
Hey, Dale.
I see you smiling on that.
If you know what the 4 words are, I'll give you a hint. 1's in Hebrew and 3 are in Greek. If you know what they are, then we can have a conversation, By the way, I put all of the videos that we did on hell in one, what do you call them, on YouTube, playlist. They're all in one playlist. And the ones on Satan are now all in one playlist too. So if you want to go back and look at it, but see, here's the thing. When I was reading about people who got out of the bubble, what the number one thing they said was that they learned to think critically about scripture, and that the number one thing they looked up was hell. They had to get hell straight. And not many people go there. The pastors who know that it's being taught incorrectly are afraid to talk about it because they're afraid they're going to get fired if they teach them what the Bible really says. It's really hard to find the truth. At any rate, so I'm not a peddler of the truth. I'm a person trying the best I can to interpret the scriptures best I can. You have to check my work, but go look at those videos on hell that I did. There are a bunch of them, and they're all in one playlist. If you want to start unpacking your own repressed critical thinking, from most of the people who got out of the bubble and got free, that was the way they did it. They had to address, because that was the foundation was that God is going to torture me forever. That's the gospel. Now, gospel means good news. So what's wrong with this picture?
Yeah, I know.
We start with God will torture you forever. That means God is first and foremost a torturer. And then we go from there. So how do I get saved from God? Now, they completely missed. So in the bubble, that's what you got, and that's all you get. No grace, as Gene said. No saved from sin. He's the savior of everyone, the scripture says. He's the savior of the whole world. He's the Lamb of God who took away the sins of the world. He reconciled all people to himself. But that's not in the bubble, because that gives you liberation, that gives you hope, that gives you freedom, that sets you free. And that's not what the bubble's for. That blue wall right there, that toxic blue wall, it's to keep you in there. And the only thing that will do that is fear. You don't want to be, they don't want any critical thinking going on in there. So, I mean, it's like, you think you could infiltrate a church like that and try to help them or try to change them?
It'll be hard. It's not impossible.
I mean, so the best hope you have is that the people who are in there get exposed to something like this, and they begin to think for themselves, and they realize, look, I'm being abused by these people, and I got to get out of here.
Or someone comes in with a new.
Maybe. Some churches do change. Like sometimes it takes a split for them to change. Like Grace International came out of the old Armstrong Church. And that's
Worldwide Church of God.
that was a very positive move, but of course it split the denomination.
Like most of them are splitting today anyway.
Yeah, they sure are, including us.
That's how we get all these.
Bert, my
denominations.
experience too is that those churches, and I use the term church loosely, have no interest in ecumenism.
Right.
They're not going to.
No. In fact, the ecumenism is the enemy. They don't want you mixing even the other Baptist church down the street or the other Episcopalian church, whatever it is. The other denominations belong over there with science, sex, politics, history, culture, and psychology. They will lead you astray. They are not under our spiritual cover because we've got it right.
Right.
They're not interested in doing anything with those of us who talk about a social gospel or a gospel that's social oriented.
Or liberation oriented.
Yeah, no liberation theology here.
Yep.
No, this is a theology of control driven by fear.
The theology of the oppressor.
Yeah, this is the oppressor and the oppressed. And the funny thing is that the oppressed masses in the pews there in that side, that blue circle, can sound like the most arrogant people on earth. We're special. And a cult leader with the right, or I should say with the wrong skills, could very easily get them to attack people on the outside who they see as a threat. So you have, as the cult develops, they become saboteurs. They become violent. If someone is acting up, they'll go hurt their family. It becomes almost like a mafia. And then if it goes far enough, then you have murders and mass suicides, which is what you had at Jonestown in the most extreme form of cult that I can think of. That
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe Branch Davidians, but certainly Jonestown.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, this does look like a cult. I think this picture comes just shy of cult because of a couple of things that are missing from it. But certainly cults do all of these
Have
things.
those, yeah,
They have those
sure.
characteristics
Mhm.
to one degree or another. Yeah.
Dale, what you thinking?
What's up, Dale?
I'm thankful that I didn't have any of this indoctrination growing up as a child. I didn't have any religious indoctrination, and it sounds like everybody in the picture experienced some type of religious indoctrination, which kind of formed your view of your understanding of God, limited by a lot of ritual laws and toxic fear, I think. And
Until what
didn't
age? Until you were unchurched until what age?
Well, until I saw the light. I actually started attending church when I was 17. I mean, we went to church occasionally. We were the CPE people.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you went once, twice was too much a year.
Yeah.
Because primarily my father believed that everybody that was in church was a hypocrite. He believed
He was
that.
right.
Oh, I don't disagree with his
How
statement.
dare you? I was not a hypocrite. I was a saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, fire baptized on my way to heaven.
Remember when I was telling you about the arrogant people? In the Bible?
But I also see something that's happening in our denomination today. The fleeing of the religious conservatives is a lot like what you're talking about when you are able to understand there is critical thinking. We leave that cult-like experience. Instead, and to me, the religious conservatives are not seeing the light. They're trying to protect what they have. So they are assimilating themselves outside of a church, which is a new cult in a sense. You know, when the United Methodist Church splits, it splits because people in the circle want to stay in the circle and control the circle. And who's left are the people who have identified with the idea that I can critically think for myself in my relationship with God.
Yeah.
I don't have to
And the
be-
method, I will say this though, to push back just a little bit, Dale, I agree with much of what you said. The Methodist Church for me is much more complicated situation than that. It's very difficult church to try to get a handle on because for the most part, it has been the denomination that has heralded the ability to sustain itself with members who are from wildly different spectrums politically and theologically. We have been very, very open and tolerant of differences. The church that I'm in right now has political liberals and conservatives in it, and theological liberals and conservatives in it, and they get along really, really, really well. And
I don't disagree there, Bert, but this new denomination that's growing May 1st, because it's actually launching May 1st, is a direct response to majority of the people who believe that you can be critically able to think about for yourself in your relationship with God. You serve a church. I've served churches just like what you're talking about, where liberals and conservatives can sit down together and on the same pew and walk out together and still love each other. This new denomination they claim to be loving people, but they're not wanting to let go of the legalism that they have lived under their whole life. And it's that legalism that's driving them.
Yeah.
And to use your word, I believe it's fear. It's the ability to control things by fear. And if you stay where you are in the United Methodist Church, you cannot control people because there are a lot of people who are like us in this group and others that I know throughout the denomination who have grown to the point of believing that I can think and understand and read scripture and discern it and not have somebody tell me what I need to believe.
Yeah.
I'm not indoctrinated. I was more indoctrinated after I became a pastor than growing up from the people around me.
Yeah.
I've seen more
I also-
racism.
Okay, again, Dale, I don't disagree with you, but I think there's another side to this one as well, because right now, the furor at least in Canada and the United States, is over indoctrination rather than education going on in our universities and colleges across America. That there is an indoctrinational agenda rather than an educational critical thinking agenda going on, especially in the soft sciences. So, and I'm still concerned about the split between the hard sciences and people of faith. And so we're good at division. We're good at taking sides. And the thing is that one of the things that bubble does real well is it shuts down all of that. It makes sure that everybody believes the same thing and everybody shuts out everybody and everything else. It cleans it all up. And of course, the price for that is extraordinarily high when you don't have interdisciplinary conversations or ecumenical conversations. It's our loss.
And aren't most of the divisions fear-based?
And I think that that's what's going on with the formation of this new denomination. I think just what you said is what's happening.
Could be. I don't have a handle on any of that. I'm not up to date on that stuff. It just makes me sick that at the time of my retirement, the church that did a pretty good job of raising me as a critical thinking Christian. A denomination that did a pretty good job of raising me as a critical thinking Christian, okay, is pulling itself apart. It's tragic to me, and I try not to think about it sometimes. I just try.
I think it is tragic. I mean,
Yep.
It hurts my heart. I mean, I have been a United Methodist my whole life. I was confirmed into the church. I was married in the church. I was baptized in the church. My children are baptized in the church. The church is such an integral part of my life, and it hurts me beyond words, thinking that in 2024, a lot of my brothers and sisters are leaving because of certain ideas that they hold. It hurts.
For sure, it hurts. I have something else I could show you, or I feel like there are other people who haven't spoken yet that might want to say something. So let's not rush ahead, okay? I don't have, it's something that doesn't change the subject. I just have a few definitions I could show you, but I do want to hear from everybody. Some of you came in late, and just give everybody a chance to talk now before we move forward, if we do move forward. Because this conversation was so intense last week, it lasted till 8 o'clock. We couldn't shut it down, and the idea was we need to come back to it. And lo and behold, our hour is essentially up.
We might need to come back again next week.
And here we are, kind of in the same boat with more to look at and more to think about. I think one of the most important things that's been said tonight is Dale, when he said, my advantage is I wasn't churched when I was a child and a teenager. I don't have this baggage of indoctrination. And to a certain degree, the same is true for me, Dale, because of who my father is and because of who the United Methodist Church is, with its ability to sustain the conversations between disciplines and denominations and religions, and to talk about them and not be afraid to talk about them. I didn't get indoctrinated in the same way that most of my friends did who were going to different denominations. And I'm grateful for that, but I am married to someone who had some of that going on in her church, and my best friend in high school and my best friend actually I have 3 best friends from high school, college, and my adult years, all of whom who struggled with their faith and the indoctrination that they experienced, the real shame that was dumped on them, and judgment because they didn't measure up, and they all left. One of them became Catholic. One of them became Methodist, and one of them became Episcopalian.
Mm.
Shame is so deep. And even when I think about my Enneagram as a 7, I go to shame when I'm unhealthy. I can get that easily. So shame is something that I grew up with all of my life, and my baby sister is on, Renee. Hey, Renee, you can join in at any time and share if you'd like.
Hey, I have a little rowdy baby here, so I'm just gonna listen.
Wonderful, Renee.
That's her grandbaby.
Oh, the grandbaby's in the house.
My baby sister has a grandbaby. Can you believe it?
I know it. That's crazy.
Anyway.
Don't call her grandma. That
I
may not go well. That might not. Don't call her Meemaw either.
I know. But anyway, yeah, shame is something that we lived with from my dad, from the pulpit. We got it in the church. We got it in the home. We got it at school, at our neighbors, because they had permission to spank us and shame us as well. It was all around. It was like we lived in a bubble of shame all the time. I mean, it was you were always on your tiptoes, trying to do the right thing, trying to say the right thing.
Or get really good at sneaking.
Yeah, which we learned to do well as well. But yeah, so shame has been so huge. I mean, huge, a huge part of my upbringing.
Hey, Becky. See Becky hiding over
Oh,
there?
hey, Becky, how are you?
I wanted
Pretty
to say something
red hair.
about what Dale was speaking to earlier, because as someone who, I was Methodist before I was born. My parents both went to a Methodist junior college. That's where they met, in the Wesley Foundation. I mean, I am steeped in Methodism, and in some ways indoctrinated throughout my life, but not in a cult sense. My parents encouraged me to think outside the box and to think and question. So I think it was a healthy Christian relationship. And like you, Dale, to see the Methodist Church imploding, I feel like there's family members that are dying and walking away from me. But I think the most terrible thing, and what hurts me the most, is I feel so helpless to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like this big iceberg that's moving and nothing can slow the momentum. It just has too much momentum now.
Yeah.
Without an intervention from the Holy Spirit, I don't know what we're going to do.
It's like the Titanic, you're bound to hit the iceberg. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it's like here comes the iceberg. Can we steer around it?
Mhm.
Oops.
It's like a
People are going to
family.
be drowning, and people are going to drown from that hit.
If you've got a family member that's doing something horrible and you have an intervention and they choose not to go the way that you want them to go, the best thing you can do, I guess, is just say, go with God and continue to pray for them. But I've got to continue to be the Christian that I am growing into. And I guess they've got to do what they've got to do too. So I'm trying to accept this, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
I don't, and I feel a little mixed about getting into the whole Methodist thing when we have so many people listening who may not be Methodist, but it's just another example of how the church is a broken place. And see, the bubble is great at creating everyone's mantra. And the mantra is, we have the perfect church. We have the perfect pastor. We're a perfect family, and I'm a perfect Christian. And it's all a lie. And one of the things that the Methodist Church has never, to me, lied about is itself. I mean, when it's been broken, it's admitted that it's been broken. It hasn't hidden much over the years for me about its own foibles and struggles. It's more on the table, and it may be because our discipline, and may even be the brilliance of John Wesley too, and our discipline puts so much on the table in terms of how we do things that it becomes more difficult for the church to hide anything. And it also creates a cohesiveness that crosses oceans. And why it is falling apart right now is hard to say, except that it breaks my heart along with y'all. Back to the specific subject of indoctrination. I think we've heard from enough people here to have a sense that some of us had more of it than others. I think
Mhm.
Mike and Dale and Jean and, well, not Jean, maybe not Jean, maybe Mike and Dale and Becky and I had less than some of you. Either because we were unchurched or we were in a Methodist church that had less of those tendencies that were in the blue bubble. Am I wrong? Gino, you were on the coast and you had a lot of Catholic influence. What church were you raised in?
Methodism. In fact, 2 weeks before my mom and dad married, Dad joined the Methodist church because, as he put it, and don't take this personally, anybody who's Catholic, he grew up Catholic, was an altar boy. He didn't want, and this is his words, he didn't want one day going Rome telling everybody how to believe. He'd have really freaked out when he found out there's a Polish guy and a South American doing it now.
Oh Lord, your dad was a trip. Bro,
Yeah,
he was a trip.
yeah,
He was a whole vacation.
yeah. And
Oh boy.
no National Lampoon involved.
You must be a really tough son of a you know what to have gotten through him being your father. I mean, that because he was pretty tough dude.
Amen.
We'll talk.
I love Catholics, Gene.
Me too. I could be one.
And Catholics and Baptists are very similar in a lot of ways.
A lot of
No
guilt.
time to go into it, but what'd you say? What'd you say?
A lot of guilt.
Oh.
A lot of guilt.
Okay. All right. I was listening to Richard Rohr today.
Yeah, that too, a lot of guilt.
It was powerful.
Okay,
I
so
think that when we start saying the Catholics and Baptists are very similar, or Methodists and Church of God are very similar, I think we're saying that from our own perspective.
Yeah.
I think if you looked on the other side of the coin, where Catholics and Baptists and Church of God, et cetera, they wouldn't say they're very similar. We can, because we can critically look and see and, perceive, I think. I live in a small town where the United Methodist Church is the place where people feel comfortable coming, because other churches, they don't feel comfortable in. So, there are a lot of differences out there, but I think that we present ourselves in a way that it allows people to feel comfortable where we are, because we don't judge, we accept, and we offer grace. And there's a big difference there.
You're right, Dale, because growing up, anything outside of Baptist or Pentecostalism, it was determined as watered down, like Presbyterian, Anglicans, anything.
watered down.
Yes, watered down gospel. Like y'all weren't preaching the truth. You weren't preaching the hard truth. It was watered down gospel. I heard
I
that.
think that's a
from-
euphemism for not beginning with God as a torturer. I
Yeah,
think that's what that means.
Yeah.
I think
If you don't begin with God as a torturer, then
Yeah.
you're watering it down.
Yes.
if you don't believe that God's going to send you to hell, then you're watering it down.
Right. Or if grace
know-
is not, anything outside of that.
When I walk, of course, I was just a kid at the time, but still, when you walk into the Catholic Church back in the 50s and 60s, it was like all the older people are looking at you. Like, I know what she did last night, and I know what he did last night. And it's like they're looking down on you. And when you walk into a Methodist church, now of course I was quite that much older, but I know when I walked into Spring City United Methodist Church, I felt the warmth, and nobody had to say anything to you. I felt the warmth, and you could ask anybody in the church that they felt loved the minute they walked in.
Well, they had a great pastor.
What? Yes, exactly. And that's true. It's all in the pastor too. But which, Pastor Dale was very good. He would, he'd walk up to you and he'd say good morning to you. He didn't care who you were. And you have so many priests out there that if you're not, of course, this is my opinion, all right? Let me say that everybody feels this way. But if you do not put gold in their purses, they don't want to talk to you. And if I'm going to be a Catholic and I'm going to be taught that I'm going to love everybody and I want everybody to love me, how can they be that way? I mean, is that just me or is that a lot of people that feel that way?
Well, I want to piggyback on that question, if you don't mind, as we close, because I
Okay.
think that's worth talking about next week. How do we move away from this bubble thinking without becoming judgmental of the people in the bubble
Right.
and starting to make, assumptions about different denominations and remain, how do you heal from the anger and the wounds that you experience? So I'm going to do a quick screen share and ask you all 3 questions that I hope will lead to next week. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. They're there. Yeah. So look at these 3 questions right here. For example, if we apply critical thinking skills to Christian education, this is some of the stuff we didn't get to tonight that we can get to next week. Number 1, at your church, are doubts and questions welcomed or punished? Number 2, are scientists and science engaged or maligned? How well is diversity of belief tolerated by the leaders? Now, those are good questions, but we also have a couple of recovery questions I want to show you, if I can. Okay. Overall, at the church you grew up in or the church that you're in now, do you feel pressured and confined or encouraged and liberated by worship? Overall, is the message fear not or be afraid? Are worship practices consistent with New Testament instructions about worship? And I hope that that will lead us to some of these questions down here next week, where we look at curiosity as an option to being defensive and perfectionistic, etc. But also down here in like number 6, how do you recover from religious indoctrination? What are the risks and costs of escape? And what are the lasting legacies, wounds, scars of having once been indoctrinated? Let's talk about recovery next week, okay?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, recognizing that I've been indoctrinated and how do I recover from it? We talked a lot about getting out and about what it's like to be in it tonight. I'd like to move from getting out to recovering, if that's possible. I didn't realize this discussion was going to be this rich, but I'm really glad that it is. Any other words from anyone? We haven't heard much from you, Kia. You got anything to say?
Not at this time. Just I said kind of what I wanted to say at the very beginning on how I felt, how the diagram made me feel. But right now, just I'm really enthusiastic about getting to this lesson for next week. This has just been a really great study, and I've really thoroughly
I
enjoyed it.
agree.
Thank you. It's just been awesome for me. Thank you. I'm glad it was awesome for you too. I hope it is for everybody. And great panel tonight. I'll check in on the Facebook people. I checked a couple of times and I didn't see comments from anybody, but we did have people lurking. So, we have people watching who don't always make a comment, but I can see a number over there now that tells me that people are there. So also we'll have people watching this recording.
To Dale.
And what?
Traveling mercies to Dale.
Yeah, Dale, you're leaving Friday, is that correct?
We're flying at almost midnight from JFK.
And are you going into Tel Aviv or Amman?
we're going into Tel Aviv, and the protocols are interesting in that airport to get through
With COVID?
with COVID.
Yeah.
Biometric screening, I got my test today, I had my PCR test today. When I land, I'll get a PCR test and have to quarantine until the results come back. That's just how it works.
Yeah, if you want to go now, Israel's serious about that stuff.
Yeah, they are.
Once you get in, are you still required to wear masks and stuff like
You
that?
have to wear a mask from the time you get on the international flight, everywhere you go, there indoors.
But out of doors, not.
Probably not. It just depends on where you are.
Well, what am I looking at behind you? Is this the Jordan River down there at the baptismal site?
You're correct.
Are you on the
Yeah.
Jordanian side, or that looks like the Israeli side?
I have never been on an SBS trip and went on the Jordanian side.
Okay.
Never.
Well, I hope the water is not so high that you can't get in. The last 2 times I was there, no one could get in. It was closed.
It wasn't closed the last time, but the water was up to the bottom of the first steps. I mean, that's how high it was the last time I was there.
Well, the water was up over the roots of the palm trees on the platform when I was there last time. You know, the palm trees that are down there, you have that first set of steps, and then you have the steps that go in the water, the little
Yeah.
narrow steps. The water was up on the 3rd step.
Yeah,
So it was up on the wall.
yeah,
It was bad.
yeah,
Um,
it was.
but it was still good to be there. But then we went on a journey to try to figure out where we were going to have our baptismal service, and we ended up in Engedi at the waterfall.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, it worked out nice. Travel safely. Take care of yourself, Dale, and stay in touch. And if you can be with us, and if a miracle happens and you can be with us next Wednesday night, we'll look for you.
I don't know where
Have a
I'm going to
great
be.
time, Dale. Enjoy.
But it's going to be a
yourself.
great time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good.
Pastor Dale, I need
Until-
pictures. I've got some walls that need pictures.
Well, listen, if he doesn't take pictures, his arms are broken.
Right.
Oh, he'll
Hey.
take them.
I have a new camera.
I saw that new camera. Go use
I
it,
have a new
man. Go use
camera.
it.
Nice.
Good. He's the one that
Well,
taught
good
me
to see
how
you.
to do moon
Blessings
things.
on all of you.
Becky, good to see you tonight.
We're
as
gonna have to go,
always.
but we're out of
Good
Good
time.
Bye,
night.
everybody.
Love you.
Good
We look
night.
forward to next week. We'll see you
Safe
next
trip.
week.
Renee,
Thank
good
you.
to see you
Safe
tonight,
trips,
too.
Gino.
Good night,
Bye-bye,
everybody.
Renee. Bye-bye,
Peace.
Gloria.
See you
Bye-bye,
later.
Kia.
Bye.
See y'all.
Kia.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good
Good night,
night.
John Boy.
All righty.
Bye.